One thing that's had plenty of debate on social media, I suppose, following a couple of interviews with PJ Banfield and Graham Malloy the weekend, where they drew attention to the championship structures. Obviously, it's been well discussed over many weeks now. At this stage, we had a hurling panelist here discuss it as well. Adrian and Michael with us now. Adrian, you I suppose have reasonably strong opinions on the way the championship should be structured.
Yeah, well, look at it. First and foremost, it's no easy task for any of the guys in the top tables or in the county board that are trying to structure it. It's very hard to keep everyone happy, and you're not going to keep everyone happy. The way I'd look at it personally, and speaking to lads from my club, and obviously we be more of a football club, obviously. We're doing a lot of good hurling down there as well, but the way we look at it is that it's hurling first. The championship run off over 7-8 weeks, whatever it is. It's fine. In the football second, that's fine if you're going to alternate it every year. There's no reason why it shouldn't be hurling first one year and then football first the second year. That's totally fair, but that's probably not ideal in either solution, because then the hurling suffers the second year, in my opinion. That's the way I think about it. But I suppose it's no easy task, but the way I think it should be done is it should be alternated weekends, and it should be a case where you maybe play 2 rounds of football, maybe 2 rounds of hurling, and the way I think on it is that we suffered massive injuries this year. So if you have a case where you're playing a hurling championship and you pick up an injury in your first hurling game, and you play the second hurling game, and then there's 2 rounds of football, you still then have maybe 4 weeks to get over an injury before your third round of hurling comes in. Instead of the way it is now, if you pick up a muscle injury or some injury that keeps you out for 5 or 6 weeks, you miss your whole championship. If you're someone who just plays football like myself, you miss your whole championship over one injury. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair on players or clubs that it's a case where either football or hurling is done first. And I don't think it's definitely fair that the hurling's constantly ran first. But look, that's another debate.
Well, I'll ask you another question on that now in a second. But Michael, you're in a club obviously that is traditionally more dual. I know Gusserane have improved their hurling, but you're more of a dual player certainly than Adrian is anyway.
Yeah, look.
What do you think on it? Yeah.
You can, as I said, you can talk to someone from Gusserane, they'll have one opinion. Someone from Glynn-Barntown might have another. Rathnure or Buffers Alley might have another. So there's no perfect solution. Look, I'd have no issue with it at the moment, but then again, as I said, we'll probably lean more onto the hurling side, and I can understand why the football fraternity in Wexford would be frustrated. As the nature of the championship is, as Adrian said, if you get an injury, your championship is over, and it's not right really that your football championship is only 6 weeks long. People might say, sure, we play the league games, but sure, the league was absolutely meaningless, more meaningless than ever this year when it came to football games. The danger of going, just from Glynn-Barntown's point of view, the danger of going football first and then hurling, and I'd imagine the Martins, the Anns and the Shells and these teams, Starlights, Raps, would feel the same. I'd be afraid if you went football first in those clubs, they would train and play hurling throughout the football championship, and it would be just a case of maybe take out the footballs on a Friday night and play your championship game on a Saturday or a Sunday, and the quality of the football would go back. I do think, I saw Paul Carty on Twitter today, I do think he might have hit upon something. He was suggesting, like Adrian said, go alternate weekends or play 2 hurling, 2 football, 2 hurling, 2 football, hurling, football, and then play one of them to a close, whether it's the football championship to a close or the hurling championship to a close. Then you have 4 or 5 months where lads are getting games. If you get injured in the first round of your hurling, you still know, I don't have a quarter final for 2 or 3 months, I can still come round. Like, we had a couple of young lads, we had a chap playing with us this year, Robbie Hillis, he was on the Wexford under 20 panel, and he got no games with the county under 20s. So he comes back to us and plays the league final against Rathnure, does his hamstring and doesn't hurl for the rest of the year, because obviously he wasn't recovered in the 6 weeks. So he's 19 years of age, a kind of a fellow Wexford should be looking to bring through, and he's gone the whole year where he hasn't really hurled a match because he didn't get on the county under 20 team, and the hurling championship was run off so fast that he never got an opportunity. So look, I can see why lads are getting frustrated, and I don't envy the men in charge, because there's no easy solution out there.
Well, Adrian, Michael has sort of preempted the question I was going to ask you next. Was the problem then, if football was to go first, would it be sort of not given 100% in the way that it is when it's second, if that makes sense. Like I'm a Monaghan man. I know now that there are lads that play football that wouldn't have played that much if it was alternate weeks, and it might be the case in some other clubs. What do you think of that?
Look at it, I suppose in some clubs you're going to have that, but you also maybe look at it a different way, and I think PJ had a comment on this, is that they didn't play a practice game all year. They went from whole summer, they were hurling, no football done, and suddenly you're thrown into a championship and you have 6 weeks then, or 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. So you've done no football for possibly 2 or 3 months, and then you're putting into a football championship. So I don't, and then you're playing maybe 8 weekends in a row if you're lucky enough to get to a final. I don't think that brings up the standard of football whatsoever. Our hurling clubs probably, if we were to go that way, say if hurling was or football was first, I don't think our lads would do nothing but hurling. We'd probably do a small bit of hurling, like. So I think in both aspects you have clubs who are going to do one or the other.
And would you, for example, now would you have done a little bit of football training with a few of the guys that are footballers only? There probably isn't that many of you that are footballers only now.
We had maybe 5-6 lads football train during the hurling championship. I actually ended up training with the volunteers because they had, I'm living in town here, and rather than driving 40 minutes out to Gusserane to train with 5 lads behind the goal, the volunteers had maybe 12 or 13 lads up there training, and I went up and done a bit of football with them. That's how I done it. So look at it, I suppose it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I think the other side of it is the way we have it with the hurling championship first at the minute is you also have players who then don't play their football championship. You have some inter-county hurlers who it's a long year on them. They're training probably since last November. They play their hurling championship and they're probably thinking, I'm back training with Wexford in 2 months' time. I need a break. I need to go travelling. I need to go on a holiday or something like that. And you see some inter-county hurlers that are not even playing with their clubs and who are all very good footballers. And again, I think that brings down the standard of hurling. And it's not fair then on the football club either. The football club is the one that suffers.
And Michael, how do you manage it then? You've a good few lads that are sort of priority football guys as well. Would they have trained a bit during the hurling championship, or what way would it work with you?
Yeah, it was a bit different this year. Like in the past, you had the likes of Rob Tierney. I used to often feel sorry for me down there, nearly soling the ball around the pitch on his own, like, during the summer months when there was nothing really stirring. But Jason Ryan was involved with us this year now. He's fairly creative. Anyone that knows Jason, like, he's trying to think outside the box. What he did, we 3 or 4 lads that didn't hurl, and he linked in with, I think, Clubon, Ballyhogue and a few surrounding clubs, and he got maybe 20 different lads from the area went and did their own football session. I think they rotated. They trained in Glynn one night, trained up in Ballyhogue another night, Clubon another night. Now I could have the clubs wrong there, but I know there was 4 or 5 clubs in the area, and all the non-hurlers met up. And say if it was in Glynn, it was on Jason to take the session. If it was up in Ballyhogue, their man took the session, etc. But look, once the last football league game was played, there wasn't a football taken out for the hurlers, if you get me, till the week after we were knocked out of championship. So you went 4 months where no one touched the football, which, as Adrian said, is not ideal either, because the first rounds of that football championship, they weren't pretty, the quality wasn't good, but it's understandable too, because you have lads who haven't picked up a football in so long.
And the next thing, like we've talked about maybe when the thing should be played, but the other thing is actually the way the championship itself is structured. We have the 2 groups of 6 at the moment, 12 teams in grades. Are you happy with that structure? Do you think there's a scope for, would you see a better structure for football, or would you think that football would have to be the same structure as hurling? What do you think?
Yeah, look at it, I suppose players want to play games, so look at it, I don't see anything wrong with the 6 teams in a group. You're guaranteed 5 championship matches at least, and players want to play. You don't want to be training for a few weeks or whatever and be out after 2 games. At least the way it is now, as I said, with the football, it takes you a couple of weeks to catch up. If you are to lose your 2 games, there's still a chance you can, pull it around and win your next 3. I see, like, just going back to the hurling, the Harriers, I think, lost their first 3 games maybe, and then won the next 2 and got through to a quarter-final. So it gives you that little bit of a chance that if you do start off bad, that you can still pull around and get to a knockout stage, where if it was less teams, you lose probably 2 games and your championship is over. So look at there probably is always room for improvement. It's very hard to do, but I think the way the structure is with teams of 6, I think is very good. I enjoy the way it is anyway.
I sound like Cilla Black now, but same question to you, Michael.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with Adrian. I don't think anyone can have any issue with 2 groups of 6. You're getting 5 games, and in most cases you're getting a 6th game, and if you're not good enough after that, you don't deserve to be there. one thing I suppose I found as you get that bit older, the quick nature of the games, it's very difficult. Like we played the Harriers on a Tuesday night, and you're fresh as a daisy going into that one, but then we hurled Gorey on a Sunday, and you're doing the warm-up, and as I said, when you're that bit older, the legs are still heavy, there's very little room for recovery. I was kicking with our second team yesterday. Now the Vols beat us, but if we'd have won, we were playing Friday night again in a quarter final, and as you're pushing on in years, 4 or 5 days is not enough. And that'd be just a personal gripe. Now if you were 25 or 6 years of age, happy days, you'd love it. Like you'd play hurling and football, you'd play a couple of games every week, you'd no training. But as I said, for the older player, you might find if it keeps going the way it is, lads might be finishing up a little bit younger than they used to, because I don't think it's sustainable to just play 8 games in 7 weeks. But now Ferns managed it well with the likes of Benny and Tonks and these fellas, but you'll find if you look back on their matches, they all got rests at certain periods. There's not one of them played every minute of every match. They were very clever with the way they used them.
Yeah, and although they don't have an old panel, the Shelmaliers have been very clever with the way they've they have the luxury of having enough of a panel to be able to do it, but they were clever in the way they've used lads so far in the championship.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and they have. I remember early on in the championship, I was looking down at their panel and looking at the players they have, and they have plenty of lads there who come in and do a similar job to the lads that are starting. So they look at their big numbers over there, and it's good for them. It's a lot harder for probably a smaller club who doesn't have the numbers, who's maybe working off a panel, of maybe 19 lads. You're unable to give lads a rest. So again, you go back then that if it's an alternated or alternated season where maybe you could play a football game, and if you could have a hurling for 2 weeks, and if you're not doing a bit of hurling, it gives you a chance to have a break. Everyone won't have that luxury because there's a lot of dual players, but it gives the alternate probably.
And I would have found that over the years with Glynn-Barntown, the likes of Eugene Furlong and Shane Carley and these fellas, they hurled senior till they were 38 or 9, but they gave up the football maybe at 33 or 4, and when it was every second weekend, then you've plenty of time to recover, and you can maybe get an extra year or 2 out of your hurling career. So it's just another thing to consider, I suppose.
Yeah, and a guy with a football priority might do the opposite, and they get 2 weeks between their games then maybe. But I suppose the debate is going to rage on. Your county board rep, Adrian, I'm sure it's going to be discussed plenty in Gusserane over the next few weeks. Do you think he'll be sending in any sort of proposals or what? Yeah, I suppose you can't preempt what your club is going to decide to do, but
it is something that's being discussed. And as far as I think in the next few weeks, before the next county board meeting, I think a motion is going to be going to clubs of what clubs' thought processes on it. But again, it goes back to that it's thrown back that it's the clubs are the ones who are voting on this, and that's fair enough, but you always know what the clubs are going to vote, because we're predominantly a hurling county and hurling clubs. So if it is given to the clubs, well then the hurling's constantly going to be started. So I think it needs to be taken away, and an executive decision needs to be made where there's a different system set up for it. So
yeah, I was actually told I think it was Kieran Deely highlighted that on online there on Monday, but I think there's a bylaw of some description that prevents the executive from making decisions on championships. So if the bylaws are changed, it could be done, but currently the executive can't just say here's the way we want it. It always has to be put to a vote, and I suppose. So
we're basically saying that the hurling is going to be first every year.
Well, we'll see what happens, but
the problem is, you see, and it's really frustrating, because I watched Graham Malloy and PJ's interview, and Adrian is saying the same thing. Like this championship suits dual clubs the way it is, because they can focus on one and not the other, and turkeys ain't going to vote for Christmas. And I don't know, as I can see the lads' frustration, but. I don't know what way it's going to play out, but I can't speak for the whole of Glynn-Barntown Red, but I know that a lot of lads out there are nearly happy enough with the way things are going. So it's not
again, and I think PJ said it, is that we're on about club and how the club is ran, but at the end of the day, football in Wexford is suffering because of it. And again, I'm not trying to put the blame on people and say the county board's fault. It's not their fault. It's very hard, but
would it be fair to say that I don't want to be too critical of football in Wexford, but was it downhill before?
It was.
Hurling was ahead of football?
It was. It definitely was, and has been for a good few years. But I think steps needs to be put in place to try and bring it back up again. And the way it is at the minute, it's not. It's just been. It's getting lower and lower. And probably can't get a whole lot lower now, in fairness, but they've made a good appointment in John there for the senior football team, so I hope that maybe the powers can be, if they can do anything, that they put in structures in place that help John going forward, and the manager after him, and that players, lads who are very interested in football can prosper.
And hopefully as well that people will get out and support the football team. I've been at a few football matches now. This weekend, the quarterfinals, I thought it was quite good attendance at them. I was at a couple of the group games, and you count them nearly in, as Liam Spratt said one day, on 2 bus loads. But it'd be great to see bigger crowds getting out and trying to support John and the senior footballers going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I suppose it's been like that for years. Even when football was probably as good as the hurling was back 10, 12 years ago, the hurlers still probably had a lot of big crowds, whereas the footballers wouldn't. So look, that's probably just the way it's been in Wexford for a long time. I don't see anything wrong with that, but yeah, look, if lads can get out and support them, and again, it trickles down. If they're getting support from the top table, that lads will trickle in behind, and fans will get behind them as well. And look, at the end of the day, we all just want football and hurling to prosper in the county club and the county teams. That's what we all want at the end of the day. But, look, it's not easy. We're all here saying what should happen or what shouldn't happen. We don't have the solutions, and it's tough. It's tough for whoever's making the decisions.
Well, we've had a good debate here. I'm sure the debate is going to continue. I haven't really given my opinion. I've been asking the lads their opinions, but I'd be actually very strongly in favour of going back to alternate weeks, hurling football. I think it would just end the debate for evermore if it was just left at hurling football. But if you have any particular comments or opinions, leave them under the video as you're watching it, or better still, submit your opinions to your local club. There'll be votes on it, there'll be meetings on it, and there'll be conventions that'll vote on it and all the rest of it. And finally, congratulations to Owler to Ballock for winning the Enniscorthy District Junior B Football Championship.